Brews and Banner Podcast. Brews and Banner Podcast. What up? Welcome to Brews and Banner Podcast. I'm your host, Rob G. And with me, as always, is the Legendary Brew Crew. What up, fellas?
I got water, I got, juice or whatever. It's like, y'all need twin legs? Matter of fact, I do.
My question to everybody is, does Delaware have an actual culture? This is the podcast that we talk about beer, but we also talk about a lot of things that's happening in the world, politics, movies, anything really that comes to our mind while we're here sampling these brews. Grab a drink and pull up a chair. Music, but it jumped off of it. All right. Happy to feel. And I'm your host, Rob G. And with me, as always, the Legendary Brew Crew. I hear echo. I don't know what that is.
Like you are in 3 stadiums in 3 different states.
You went underwater. But it came back towards the end, though.
It came, yeah. But I still hear echo. I don't know who the echo is coming from. I don't know what that means. Maybe.
Yeah, I don't hear echo. We just it just kind of was choppy.
See how free flowing this is to know?
Yes.
Well, that's because
I'm with it. I'm with it.
The beautiful world of technology, and it obviously, like somebody said earlier, technology is retrograde today for some reason.
There's that.
It's crazy because I do still hear echo.
And you sounded totally distorted at the beginning. Now you sound fine.
Huh? It must be just the warm up.
Or maybe your voice didn't go high. You didn't get a high enough octave in the beginning.
Mm-hmm. We'll try it again. Try your music again and see if your music works.
No, it ain't working.
It ain't working. Okay.
That shit ain't working, dog.
I mean, it may work, but I was like,
I've already have an outro to figure out too. There,
I've already done past that. Well, it actually probably will work now, but it don't matter at this point. Well, let's see.
Wait 2 minutes. Oh, there it is. Yes, I love it. We have an intro right in the middle of it. Way to bring that intro after the first 2 minutes. That's good, man.
Yes, that's how we do it. Free flowing, baby.
Free flowing. Ain't nothing like it. You never know where this water gonna go.
Yeah, actually, you see, we down the man. We down the man because he said his thing's backed up, so that's why he ain't even on here.
He's having technical difficulties. That's how he said.
I was wondering. I was like, aren't there supposed to be 4 of them? Where's the 4?
Yeah, he was just here. Right before you got on, he was here.
Oh.
Yeah, he just texted me and said there was something going on, something in the water. All right.
Drunk in the water.
Retrograde.
All right. Well, this is Brews and Banter Podcast, episode 123. Did I actually have how y'all doing today? I forgot. I'm sure.
Now the intro was totally messed up, but it's all right, man. Don't worry about it. Yeah. We don't have to have the same intro every time. No.
Kind of do. That's the whole point. What up?
We just have to be here. We just have to be here and do a podcast.
Is the rocket?
That's it.
And the brew? What happened to fuel? And with me as always, Legendary Brew Crew. How y'all doing, fellas?
Yes.
What's going on, everyone?
I'm doing great on this.
How are you guys doing?
Rob, Lou, and guests that we'll introduce soon. We're doing good.
Yeah.
I like the new intro. I like the new intro.
I jacked it up. I was supposed to put her in the green room. Forgot that too.
I was like, we can see you. I was like, all right, can I go ahead and pour my beer?
Yeah.
She's like, I just want to drink.
I
just want to drink. And it's a podcast for me to drink.
Yeah, this is
like the 4th time she asked to open her beer. Go ahead and open it, girl. Go open your beer.
No. Let's stay a little bit on script.
She don't want to.
This is episode 123 of Brews and Banter Podcast, and part of our social distancing series. And we do have a great guest with us today, Atinuke Diver.
Yes.
Good job.
Welcome.
Because I had to say in my head, rhyming with river. I had to say it.
Right.
Because I almost said the other.
Good job.
Yeah. Let me see. There he's timing in and out.
Yoda made it.
Maybe. We'll see what happens. Well, while he's doing that, before we get into everything, we always like to know what everybody's drinking. So, what are we drinking today? And we always start with a guest. So, Tina, what are you drinking today?
Oh, sweet. I am drinking by none other than the Brianna Brake, founder, brewmaster, CEO of Spaceway Brewing in Rocky Mount, North Carolina. Paper Chaser, which is a New England style IPA. It's delicious. Haven't actually had it in a while. And I'm actually also want to shout out, I'm enjoying it in my glass from, this way, Bow and Arrow, which is the nation's first indigenous women-owned brewery.
Nice.
That's one in New Mexico,
New
right?
Mexico, yep, in Albuquerque.
Could you put that a little bit closer to the
Yes.
Oh, that's dope. Yeah.
Yes.
I like
love
that.
it.
So want to shout them out, and then also, of course, Bree, one of the only, well, right now, I guess it's just her and Celeste in terms of Black brewers in North Carolina. So
awesome. Yep. We love them. Love to hear that.
All right. All right, Lou, what are you drinking on?
Today I haven't even cracked it yet, but I have this cream. What is this? Cream Team cookies and cream flavored milk stout. That's what it looks like.
Oh,
it's from Flying Dog.
Yeah, I could tell. Mm-hmm. They're Baltimore.
Let me see.
Where are they?
On. Where is that at?
I think there'd be more.
See, you put me on the spot. Yep, Frederick, Maryland. There you go.
Oh, Frederick. Okay.
Yep. Frederick, Maryland. I don't like you put me on the spot. God, wait.
Are you from Maryland? The way you just said Maryland.
No, that's how we say it in Delaware, Maryland.
Oh, okay, close enough. Yeah.
Yeah, we right up the street from there. we not from there though.
I hit 95 South Maryland yesterday.
I work 2 minutes away, but we don't live there.
You're right, you are. He does. He's right over there.
I believe it.
This is what it looks like, guys. It is 9.5 alcohol by volume.
Baby.
It smells. It does have like a little bit of that Oreo cookie, chocolate cookie smell.
I wonder if they brewed it. Like, I wonder if they brewed the cookies in there.
Probably. They probably put a mash in there.
It says, tiptoe to the fridge, avoid creaky floorboards, slowly opening the fridge. Wait a minute. You're a goddamn adult and can have cookies anytime you want. Inspired by the best dessert combo ever created, cookies and cream flavored stout was born from the love of that last swig of milk after you've dipped 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 cookies into it. So drink up. Calories don't count after midnight.
Oh, well, there you go.
Your nutritionist might not agree. But wait till you go to that physical. Like, what you been eating?
Right. It seemed like he was doing it at night. Like, I was just drinking the beer. I was just drinking it. I wasn't eating.
They said it didn't count.
Yeah, but yeah, it smells really, really good. It tastes just the way it smells, real chocolatey. You could taste the lactose in it. Pass me another. Good job, Flying Dog.
Good job.
All right. Dev, what are you drinking on?
Well, speaking of Maryland and our visit yesterday, we went to a can release in Baltimore, Maryland yesterday at the Peabody Heights Brewery, and we picked up the fruited saison that is named P, stands for Pay It No Mind. This is also a collaboration with a good brew crew previous guest, Black Beer Geek collaboration that she did in collaboration with Peabody Brewing Heights Brewery. Okay. This can is to support and is in pay homage to Marsha P. Johnson, which is also known as Malcolm Michael Jr., who was an amazing American gay liberation activist and self-identified drag queen. So yesterday was a big celebration and was an exciting time because we got to see not just the can release, but we got to see Black Beer Geek in her element with her friends and our wives. We got to, kind of enjoy them, enjoy in their space, because it was the first time I had been to a drag queen show, and they did a runway and the whole nine. But back to the beer. back to the beer. It fruited saison. It is with 7%. The color looks like this. Very, very fruited. Can't really tell you if I pick up on exact flavors per se, but it is very fruity. It's very, mild. Very, very much a good fruited saison. And
did you mention the ABV, Dev?
Yeah, 7%.
7%. Yeah. Okay.
7%. Yeah. Baltimore, Maryland. Pass me another, and
all right. Yeah.
Hey, Rob G.
Yeah.
This is episode 123. What would you happen to be drinking on today, sir?
Oh, I'm glad you asked me.
I don't know if you tell the truth or you tell the truth lying out.
I'm actually drinking another thing from Peabody Heights. I am drinking Cream is Forever. There it is. Strawberry banana milkshake IPA.
IPA. Wow, that's really interesting for an IPA. Wow.
Why did they have to put IPA at the end of it?
Why?
That's what it is.
Yeah, we can be faulty. I'm not an IPA fan. I'm not an IPA fan, and every single time they try to make a good flavor, it got IPA behind it. It's never just like a regular beer.
There are.
Way too many
IPAs does have a little bit of a takeover experience.
Can we get an IPA version? Can I get an IPA version, a saison version, and a sour version? Can I get some versions?
No.
Yes.
Let Rob finish introducing his beer first.
No, we could digress about how IPAs is taking over unnecessarily.
IPAs do have a takeover.
Go ahead, Rob.
Well, they are the most popular style
unfortunately.
But this is 6.8%. It's very, very hazy, as you can tell.
Look at that.
And my
it looked like strawberry. It looked like strawberry milk. Remember the Nestle Quick with the rabbit, the strawberry milk back in the day?
It looked like cereal milk.
Yeah, that's true.
And you got all the flavors and everything. Look just like that.
Yeah.
Like it don't taste like that. Maybe it look like that. He's like,
it was really good. I had it.
Oh, you tasted it too?
Yeah, because it's like pretty well balanced because neither fruit really overpowers.
I was about to say the banana because normally a banana overpowers stuff, but banana's not overpowering the other stuff.
No, because you could taste banana, but you can also taste on the back end there is some strawberry in the back end. So definitely well balanced beer from Peabody. Once again, shout out to them and Black Beer Geek for putting on that can release that Dev talked about about just a second ago. It was a good time. And like she said, they make good beer, and she was glad to partner with them because because they were behind the cause and as well as they make good beer. So that's always a win-win when people are not just talking about allyship, but actually are putting their money where their mouth is, I guess, in terms of and their beer where their mouth is, and putting it out to the public. Because you said that all the proceeds from the beer goes to the
actual
safe haven for transgender youth in Baltimore. So respect to that as well.
And shout out to all the LGBTQ plus people. Happy Pride Month.
AI. Isn't there 2 new letters on the end we learned yesterday, Rob?
That's why I said plus.
People, they say plus.
Plus. Okay, because that was something I learned yesterday.
Yeah, because I know after Q there's something, but I didn't know. I don't know what it is. So I know that you could say plus. Yeah,
got it.
It gets longer every couple of years.
Right, because
with more people identifying themselves the way that they want to, which is totally the great thing. Never mind.
And
what you gonna say?
I was gonna be you know how like white people try to get in black conversations and he's like, no, you're not black. You can't. I was going like it's LGBTQ, but is the plus? Can straight be included in the plus? Because okay. I just wanted to know. Thank you for clarifying. I don't want to step. I don't want to be rude. I'm ignorant about it, but I don't want to be rude about it. Like I don't know, and I just wanted to make sure that I know I'm not included, and that's fine. That's fine. Okay.
Well, there you go.
And one final shout out, which Rob knows what I'm probably about to say. That he pretty much said yesterday he would mute me as we get to this part. But that was just all our fun and games yesterday. Shout out to Vaughn and Matt, who of Secret Sauce Company, who had their food truck and had the food on premises yesterday for the event at Peabody Heights Brewery. They made some amazing pulled pork sandwiches, cheesesteaks, and a plethora of other things, coleslaw. But I mainly want to shout it out because he gave us he gave me for free their own bottled ketchup and hot sauce that they make as an added to their steak. So be sure to follow them. Be sure to support these food trucks that actually show up at a lot of these different breweries, because a lot of them have food on site.
I wonder if they make.
You always hear about people's hot sauce. What makes the ketchup so special?
So speaking of that, and I'll grab the bottle real quick because it's right to my left. Hold on.
I was gonna say, I wonder if they make mumbo sauce.
The unique thing about the ketchup is the fact that it doesn't.
Facts.
Yes, Brandon.
It actually tastes like almost like a tomato sauce versus like your true like ketchup that you would buy like what's a brand that we
Heinz.
all Heinz.
Or Hunt.
Like Heinz tastes more like it's like sugary. But this actually tastes like a true kind of like tomato like paste that you would put on it. So it actually adds more like zest or whatever to the meat that you put on. It doesn't taste like your kind of corn syrupy.
But you know how we used to the corn syrupy ketchup. Could you put that on the hot dog and just like it's a gourmet dog after that?
It was fine.
It was fine. I actually liked it on my cheesesteak. I liked it on my cheesesteak. I don't know if I would like it on my on a hot dog, just because the palate and the flavors might need to balance out the same.
You so used to that hot dog and ketchup combination.
All right,
yeah, exactly.
You're so easy. You could buy ads on Bruce and Banner podcast for mustard and ketchup.
Yeah, it doesn't matter, man. We always available.
Well, speaking to Brandon's point, this is the kind of stuff that I always tell us about anyway. So, Brandon, you're barking up the right tree because I'm on the same page as you.
And as he says that, they not paying him for doing none of this.
Right. What you barking up? You barking up the wrong tree.
but they did give us free product. So
they gave it to you.
This is their hot sauce. And I'm gonna support. I'm gonna support a small business because we're a small business. Our podcast is a small business, so I'm gonna support them like they supported me. And this is their hot sauce, and it was delicious too.
All right. Well, okay. Well, that I'm gonna have to edit all that out. No,
you can edit it all you want.
Well, this is episode 123, so we need to get to the business of what we're here for, and we're here to talk about Atinuke Diver. I'm not even going to say the last name anymore. I'm going to mess it up for sure.
You got it.
But like I said, we would like to know what's going on, who you are, how you got started, all about the project that you're currently working on. So once again, Atinuke Diver to the program.
Thank you.
The floor is yours.
Thanks. Yeah. Ooh, thank you. Extended applause. So I'm Atinuke Diver. I'm the director of This Belongs to Us, which is a film that explores race and beer. And it basically is seeking to understand how a craft that began with women in Africa and the East became synonymous with white, male, blue-collar identity in the United States. And so my journey into this film was definitely a journey in kind of following my curiosity. And it's kind of this confluence of a lot of different, I think, aspects of my life. One was, as I mentioned earlier, that I'm the daughter of Nigerian immigrants. And I grew up with a somewhat, with an awareness of the history of beer being connected to the African continent. The first beer brewer I had actually ever met was a Nigerian man, a family friend who worked for Nigerian breweries in Nigeria. And a lot of European beer brands actually will brew their beer in African countries that, usually have formal colonial relationships So Guinness, for instance, I was reading once that there's more Guinness brewed, in Nigeria than in Ireland or something like that. And so, for cost reasons. And so, so I knew about that. I knew about the history of beer brewing with Egyptians. I knew about Ethiopians and brewing. And so that was kind of, where I started from. As a kid, my earliest memories, though, of beer were, my parents are part of this community. There's a pretty large Nigerian community in the DC, Maryland, Virginia area where I grew up. And so growing up, we had this community of folks, and we'd have parties and get together for, cookouts, birthday parties, etc. And usually, the men would be in the living room, and soccer would be on. Women might be in the kitchen or another place, talking or whatever. And there'd be this cooler kind of near where the men were, and there'd usually just be three things in there. There would be Malta, which is a non-alcoholic kind of malted drink that's also really popular in the Caribbean. There'd be Malta, Guinness, and Heineken, and that was it. I don't even think I don't think I even knew there was anything else outside of that until well into adulthood, because that's what I kind of grew up seeing. And so fast forward, I moved back to North Carolina in 2015 and was out in Asheville, which is in the western part of the state, on a trip, and was with someone doing this beer tour, a brewery tour. And so North Carolina, I believe, still has the most breweries per capita of any state. And so when you talk about craft beer, particularly in the U.S. South, North Carolina is really the epicenter of that. And the craft beer industry in North Carolina is pretty significant. And Asheville is a big part of that because of the number of breweries that are there. And so anyway, so on this tour, and I was kind of there, almost sometimes, some beer events will have a designated driver kind of ticket where, this person going to drink. So I was kind of that, because I was I don't really like beer, I kind of taste things here and there. But I did kind of triangulate on what I liked, and I figured out, what I liked. And I was
designated driver.
Well, it was. They had a van driving us around, so not really. But I was like, hey, I'm not gonna really be drinking at all.
You're like the chaperone of the group.
Yeah, I was like, can I get a discount? I was just trying to get a discount. I'm not really going to drink the full price worth of a ticket. I'm gonna just sip some of his, So can I just, can I?
Lord.
I was just trying to get a deal. So, and so when I moved back to North Carolina, I was kind of noticing how significant breweries were, and bottle shops, etc. And that fall there was a beer release for a beer. I actually have a bottle here. A bottle release for a beer. It's very popular, made by Foothills Brewing, which is a brewery in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. It's called Sexual Chocolate. So I will show you this. This is the old label.
That sounds like Winston-Salem. That sounds like Winston-Salem.
So as you can see from the art, for those maybe who might be visually impaired, it has the word sexual chocolate, and it has a kind of Foxy Brown-esque looking black woman with afro, and so I see this and I'm thinking, oh, and sexual chocolate, is an homage to Coming to America, part of the great canon of Black film, right?
Right.
And so I'm like, oh, bet this is going to be this really interesting, dope, melanated event. So we show up to the bottle shop, and I'm like, what the hell is going on here? Let's just say nobody that looks like that label was really. I think there maybe me and one other melanated appearing person,
Right.
And I was like, what the hell is going on? This is crazy. And I began thinking, asking my questions well, does anyone who looks like that even work there? Why would they use such a blackety black, cultural references to, push something, so I had all these questions that started. Then at the same time, I was at the Center for Documentary Studies at Duke University working on a certificate of documentary arts. They have been working on projects, film and audio projects, all based on folks in Durham or Eastern and Central North Carolina. Okay. And I'd done an audio project called Masterpiece about a Durham DJ artist activist named Gemini. And Gem was moving into some new art space in basically a repurposed kind of tobacco warehouse in downtown Durham. And that space happened to be next to an Asheville brewery, Highwire, that had establish a location nearby. And Gem's art is centered on Black femmes, Black bodies, Black. So it's this beautiful day, and the brewery has like their garage doors up. And of course, there's cornhole because you got to have cornhole, right? And so walking by, and I do a kind of quick scan, and I'm like, dang, like, and everyone appeared to be white. And I go into Gem space, and it's again uber centered Black. The music's Black and everything. And across the street from where we are is like one of the largest, most dilapidated public housing complexes in all of Durham. It's proximate to, an area of the city with, high population of low income Black and brown folks. So it was just like this moment where I was experiencing all the different ways that people interact with the community that both holds, all of this economic promise, but then also some of the most severe poverty in the state of North Carolina. Yep. Because one of the things about, breweries that I've been thinking about is the space, right, that they occupy in communities. Right. Because they often move into kind of like industrial, and they're looking for like industrial space because of, we
experienced it yesterday.
The brew, because of, what they need for, the equipment and shipping, and usually near train tracks, which, often, connote certain things. And so what you see sometimes is breweries then bringing in a clientele that looks really different from the historical community, right, that surrounds it. And they can often be the canary in the coal mines of gentrification. So anyway, so that experience is kind of stuck in my head. And then fast forward a few months, this would have been, I guess, spring of 2019. I was at the Hayti Heritage Film Festival, which is a film festival at the Hayti Heritage Center, which is Hayti is the historic Black community in Durham. And a lot of us are talking about, Tulsa and the history of the decimation of Black Wall Street in Tulsa. And you had a similar dynamic that happened in the Hayti community, particularly around urban renewal and the construction of the Durham Freeway 147, and how that literally decimated this self-sustaining, Black community. And so the Hayti, I'm at the Hayti Film Festival, and during one of the intermissions was getting a drink, and they were serving beer from Harlem Brewing, and they were mentioning how, this is brewed by a Black woman. We're like, oh, cool, bet, that's what's up. And then the person's like, oh, and she's apprenticing a young woman in Eastern North Carolina. And I was like, what? Because that's just not what you hear people talk about. And I was like, it was cool. I was like, really? And so I was kind of, oh, okay. And I just kind of filed it. And so at that point, I had kind of this idea of a project, but didn't really know if there was a there. And so I decided I was going to do a research trip to Fresh Fest, the 2019 Fresh Fest in Pittsburgh. And which happens to be where my sister and her family live. And so, did some auntie duty, but then got over to the festival, because again, I wouldn't be what I call like a native, beer enthusiast. I'm not, didn't know. And so then I get to Fresh Fest, and I'm like, oh, this is a thing. Like there's a bear here. Like, I couldn't believe it. I was like, I felt like this was an anthropologist that like had found this new civilization. Like the beards.
That's a great analogy for what it is. Yes. That's exactly how. Yes.
It was like the beards were glistening, and I was like, hey, this is like coconut oil.
Yeah.
Hey, melted shea butter. What you put in your beard, bro?
All right.
Like, dang, I ain't never seen beards glisten like that.
Right.
New beard product, glisten. So anyway,
that was great.
So yes, I was there. I was, sat in on the panel that Garrett Oliver did, and met folks like Afro Beer Chick, and so just learning about this world of Black beer folks. And so then I was going around getting beer, and I stop at one spot, look down, pick up the business card, and I see the person's brewery's in Rocky Mount, and I look up, and I'm like, you're a nerd. And it was Brianna. It was Brianna Brake. It was Bree, who was the person that when I was at the Hayti Film Festival, that they were talking about her as being the person being apprenticed by Celeste. And so I looked and I was like, you're in Rocky Mount. And she's like, yep. And I'm from Durham. And I'm like, what? And so she was obviously busy serving beer, but I was like, let's get let's talk when we get back. Yeah, we get back to North Carolina. And so we did, and just got to know Bree as a person and her journey and her story, which is amazing. But this idea kind of pitched her like, hey, this is what I'm thinking about working on. This is my idea. And so she has been really generous with allowing me to document with her since, I guess that would have been like the fall of 2019. And so since then have just been, learning and have also had the chance to meet Celeste and, Dr. J. Nicole Beckham and just a lot of folks who have been having some of these conversations and thinking about some of these things and just even seeing how the conversation has shifted and even accelerated and amplified since I first started researching the project back in 2018. Thinking about, things like, the beer summit that happened in the White House, right, under President Obama. And like, what is that? How does that still speak to this moment when that came about in the reaction to, a white police officer in Cambridge, Massachusetts, arresting, Professor Henry Louis Gates outside of his home, and some of the same conversations that we're having about this, about race in policing. So, we are, I would say, in terms of the project, I would say we're in early production. We just finished our first crowdfunding campaign about a month or so ago. I had the chance to screen just a rough works in progress cut at this year's Sundance Film Festival as part of the Carolina Works in Progress screening, which I'm really grateful for. And so it's just been, COVID and the pandemic has completely shifted the way that, it shifted a lot, but it's also shifted the way that, documentarians think about, making films and planning films. And I think one of the great things is being able to develop your audience really early on in the project and for people to feel like they're on the journey of the project with you. And so it's been great to connect with so many people who are invested in the project and who are like, this is an important story, this needs to be made. Oh, the most important thing I forgot to mention. So while I'm, working on this, researching, et cetera, at some point I was, I told my mom what I was up to. And, I just, mentioned, I was like, yeah, we're in this project, blah, blah. She's like, your grandmother was a brewer. I was like, excuse me, what? Wow. Excuse me? I was like, no. Like, wait, what? And she's like, oh, your grandmother. I was like, what? And she's like, yeah, your grandmother, she brewed a fermented drink in her village. It's called burukutu, which is the kind of traditional fermented drink that they make out of what they call red guinea corn, what we call sorghum. Yeah, sorghum, it's naturally gluten-free. So you have a lot of brewers trying to use it for gluten-free beers. And, think about where sorghum grows in the U.S., in the South, particularly the South. And we know how it got here. So that has been this whole other opening in terms of connecting with the spirit of my grandmother. And, because she not only brewed it, she bottled it. She had people that worked for her to sell it and to distribute it. And so to have that connection to that traditional, pathway is pretty crazy. And so I'm actually hoping to do some shooting over in Nigeria at some point, if we can make it happen. So yeah, there's lots of themes that I'm hoping to explore. We could talk about some of those too, but I can take
Before
a pause.
we get into that, do you need a best boy or a grip or something?
Yes. Anytime you want to come.
I work for free. I just work for a free ticket to Nigeria.
Okay. I can pay you beer.
Beer and a ticket to Nigeria. I'll figure out my food and my housing. I just need the plane ticket.
That was a great quick summary of how you started this journey from a 2019 Fresh Fest visit. So you talked something specifically about the panel discussion you were on with Garrett, and we were there obviously in 2019 as well.
Oh, you were there? Awesome.
We were there.
Every black person in craft beer in 2019 was either there or trying to make it there.
Yes, I'm trying to make it there.
If you've been in craft beer for 2 years and you're a black person in America. Yeah.
So my question was, being a part of that panel, obviously amongst greats or people with wealth of knowledge in the brewer community, what was maybe something profound or something that stuck with you that maybe even Garrett said or as a part of that panel, what would you say was kind of one of those takeaways or just kind of a gem that was dropped, maybe just being in that room? I like being in those kind of I was there moments. Yeah. So that's what I'm
So there's a few things that I remember about that moment. One was actually before the panel started, and it was and it's one of the things that I think is kind of distinct about Black beer culture, because that I didn't know about, was the whole bottle sharing aspect. And it wasn't it was we are doing a bottle share here, but I think Mr. Oliver had brought a bunch of his I can't remember what beer it was, but it was like a larger format Brooklyn. Mm-hmm. It was really good, whatever it was. Okay. I can't remember what it was. But I just remember everyone was everybody was just sharing that, you know, like the beers, and it was like it just felt like this very like communal, like you know, thing, because I do think that is a part of kind of the actual origins and traditions in terms of the ways in which beer was produced and consumed. Mm-hmm. So that's one thing that had stuck out in my mind, that happening. And then the other thing was, you know, Mr. Oliver is this like, you know, encyclopedia of like kind of history and culture and geography and things. And so I really appreciated him naming, because I asked a question during the panel, you know, kind of mentioning kind of the themes of this film. And I appreciated him naming the ways in which essentially the role that, you know, like marketing and advertising has in terms of essentially kind of social engineering people to believe what they like or what's good or, you know, what's, you know what I'm saying? And so particularly when it comes to Black folks, in terms of, you know, a lot of these narratives, because a lot of times I will hear, actually I've been in breweries, I've heard people say like, we just need to teach Black people about craft beer. Like, no, you don't, because it started with us. So we good, you know, like, you know, but it's like, I just appreciated him talking about the forces outside of just, you know, kind of, you know, free will and like, you know, what's available, that actually crafted, you know, and directed, you know, for instance, I mean, the production and the proliferation of malt liquor. I mean, you have a product that was made with inferior ingredients that was heavily marketed to Black and Latino folks, you know? And so, and, you know, I was talking about this in another interview, like the serving size for that is 2.5 of these. Like that's one serving size.
Yeah.
And so,
and that bottle is huge. That you just two and a half more.
Yeah, I think like 2.5 times.
Yeah.
So, you know, so I just appreciated, so those are the two things that I remember saying. And I appreciated Mr. Oliver's presence because it almost also felt, I love like intergenerational space.
Yeah.
And so I also appreciated that as well. Because I had actually never heard of Mr. Oliver. And I'm like, why have I never heard of this man? Like I had no idea that he had been in beer for so long, you know.
Right.
And just to tag along to that, it wasn't until after going to Fresh Fest, seeing him in that space, that I then stumbled upon a reference of his beer, Brooklyn Brewery, in the movie Do the Right Thing. It's in the cooler in the movie, in the pizza shop. And it wasn't until after Fresh Fest that I watched the movie again. It was like, oh my God, you know.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that either. I didn't know that until just now.
Lee, he was on it.
Yes, I didn't know that until just now.
All those years later, I'm like, I had no clue.
So, Brooklyn makes sense.
Yeah.
Brooklyn.
Right? So great.
That's pretty cool. Now I got to go back and watch. Okay.
Right.
Yes, please do.
Right. You when you're going through and you're developing this documentary, you mentioned back when you were a kid that your family barbecues and cookouts only had the 3 different types of beer. But when we talked to African people from that own breweries in Montclair Brewery, and he said that they made all different types of beer, and you mentioned your grandmom did too. What was it that made it that you didn't have those different types of beers at your cookouts when you were younger? Do you know?
I don't know, because you know, ain't nobody asking me for my opinion. 18.
That's true. You're like 6 and 10 years old, right? Right. Get your hand out that cooler, girl. Don't close that cooler.
Right. Those are the adult coolers. You better get over there. Those juices.
Yeah, go get you a Capri Sun or a Huggy.
Right. But hearing
you know how it is.
Talking to your mother and find out your grandmother brewed beer. What do you think what was lost in translation? Do you think, in your opinion?
Yeah. So my grandmother, Alice Adegbile Ajayi, she died when my mother was 14. So I actually never got to meet her, but she did stop brewing. And this is actually one of the several themes I'm exploring, kind of this intersection. So the reason why she stopped brewing was because she started attending a church that told her that her making and selling alcohol was essentially
was banned. Like they couldn't do it.
Wow.
I have all kinds of epigenetic anger about that I'm still working through. But and that's one of the things I'm exploring, because that's come up in some conversations that I've had, even, you know, with Bree about, you know, particularly being in the South, Eastern United States, and kind of, and it depends obviously on like your religious tradition and even where it falls in terms of around alcohol. But there's still for a lot of people, some of our elders, it's taboo. Alcohol is taboo, and you stay away from it. You stay as far away as you can. And so one of the other threads I've been following is like in terms of the history of race and alcohol and beer is like there was this kind of really close proximity between the abolitionist movement and the temperance movement, right? Right. And I think a lot of that was in this era of Black respectability, right? Like it was like, all right, we free, Reconstruction, et cetera. And it was like this idea that Black folks, we have so much to deal with and all these stereotypes and things that we're fighting against. Let's not complicate matters and like get close to something that could, make us could feed into that, and so I wonder how much of that feeds into some of the decisions that people make in terms of thinking that even going into brewing is something that's accessible to them or that's something that they could do because of maybe kind of the reaction from certain people that are close to them or in their community. But yeah, so specifically with my grandmother, that's how that happened. That influence of specifically of religious tradition. And I don't know. I have to ask my dad. I don't know if it was like a carryover from because when in Nigeria when I go, my cousins drink like Star and they drink like kind of other stuff, but or Gulder. I think that's the other one, Star and Gulder. So I don't know. Again, my parents came from Nigeria to the U.S. in April of 1975, when Nigeria was still not that far out of kind of post-colonial life in terms of Britain's influence on Nigeria. And so I think as a result, there's just a lot of things about Nigerian culture that were really heavily influenced by European, British culture. And I think, probably the beer brands that they consumed is part of that.
Now you say you can. There's a lot of themes or a lot of I guess angles you're thinking about taking the documentary. And I'm curious if I don't know if you have seen the documentary High on the Hog. It's on Netflix.
It's on my queue. I haven't had time to watch yet, but I'm really excited because there's some local folks from North Carolina who are in there, and so I'm really excited to watch.
Because I see as you've been talking, I've hear a lot of those same themes that are run through in terms of how you could trace all the things back to Africa, and like he went over there to Africa and just to see how those foods. So the same thing with foods can probably say the same thing about beer. So I was curious, is that exactly some of the things that you're talking about as well?
So so much of the South, so much of the Southern culture that people love is really African. Right. Like whether it's the banjo or black eyed peas or green, like whatever, like there's so much about what we call Southern culture that's really African. And so absolutely, I know that's I'm fascinated to learn about even as kind of the growth of like again like these sorghum based beers and different things, like using these grains that were used traditionally back in different African countries for brewing, as that kind of continues to proliferate and grow. And I'm really excited to see too, like even just to dovetail off of that, like I know one of the things that has been really interesting that I've been watching Celeste do is how she's working with farmers, right, in North Carolina and Virginia. Like they're trying to figure out how can we grow hops? How can we work with NC State or A&T or our strong agricultural schools down here and figure out how to grow hops down here. Working with Black farmers in Virginia and North Carolina for grains and malts and barley and sorghum and the ingredients for their beer. And I love that. I think that's incredible.
I agree. That's awesome.
I'm starting to feel more series than just one documentary. Netflix,
this isn't 2 hours. This don't feel like 2 hours. This feels like more of an 8 to 10 hour, 10 hour set. Yes, I agree.
Yeah, because it's a lot. Like there's a whole type of movement and stories that need to be told. Like just what Celeste is doing and Brie and Montclair, because I think I've had the sorghum beer that they brewed at Montclair Brewery, and even Sankofa bringing some of the more traditional brewing styles, because I believe both of them are from Africa as well, from I can't remember exactly what.
I think their parents are.
One Ghanaian, one Nigerian. I think.
Right,
I can't remember.
right. So I think bringing those styles here, well, not even here, but they've already been here, but taking it back to where it kind of started from, I think that's pretty dope. And I like, so yeah, I need Netflix to come through.
Yeah. Netflix?
Yeah.
Google me.
We'll add them. We'll add them.
We'll add them.
Put that into the universe, right?
The people of that. There you go. The people of that.
Right. Because then you won't have to think about going to Nigeria. It's right there. Like, I'm here.
As many trips as you want, huh?
Right.
Not just one.
Yes.
Teach me how to hold a camera, please.
Yeah.
So I just want to go.
Yeah, but no, I mean, there are some, there's some really amazing things going on, there. I mean, South Africa, I believe, is also a women-owned brewery in Rwanda. Like, there's just some really interesting, there's just a lot of really interesting stuff going on across the diaspora. So that's, really cool.
Right, because we saw that Black Brew Culture is actually doing one of their beer fest in Soweto. Soweto this year,
Yes.
There's a lot of craft breweries in South Africa. I didn't know at first until I looked it up. I was like, wow, there's a lot of, and it would make sense to be there since it originated there. But because of the way it's been marketed,
great concept.
Do you remember? I don't know if you remember this from the panel from Fresh Press, but like Mr. Oliver talked about. I'm so Southern. I'm like, Mr. Oliver. I can't call his first name.
Right, Garrett.
Good Southern girl. But he talked about how he had been, a judge for the Africa Cup, which is this big beer competition across the continent where different countries submit, and how he demanded that they ensure, because he said they had no entries from any Black brewers or breweries. And he's like, wait a minute, I know the history. I know these folks have recipes, have traditions. And he pushed to make sure that they made sure that in future years that they had representation and inclusion entries from Black folks. It's like, how you have a competition?
You gonna have an Africa Cup and not one Black entrant?
Man,
come on, at least have a Black contestant.
We know colonialism was bad, but dang,
that's racism at its finest, right there. Right. An African Cup and all white entrants. Good Lord.
Well, it's like that beer she showed earlier, the sexual chocolate, where they didn't even hire people to work there.
Right. and going back to, I bet you if you do that research for that brewery, that's their highest selling Black beer. Like they only sell that beer to Black folks. White people aren't even drinking that beer. White people put the bottle on their mantle. Like, oh, look at my, how in college you had all those beer bottles that you drink. Right, just like a trophy for them. They didn't even drink the beer.
Well, that they changed the label. People they got called out. I want to say this was.
I bet they did.
Around 2019, I think it was kind of.
That lady too sexy on the bottle to not have a Black person in the brewery,
when this wave, I think that was kind of, this crescendoing of, kind of these questions about cultural misappropriation, with, beer marketing and stuff started coming up. They changed it. They changed the label. So this is actually, this is I think this is a 2018 or 2019. You can't get it with this label unless you have one of those or older vintages.
Edition. You got a limited edition now.
So they definitely listen, and I think they have some articles. If you Google, I think they have some articles about it in that decision for them to change the label for that reason.
So, in your opinion, what do you think is the reason why craft beer in America has been so male whitewashed?
That's a good question. God.
Check it out in the documentary.
It's a lot of different things. I do wonder about the because I think in my mind I think about the production of beer kind of in terms of traditions and the commercialization, the big scale kind of multinational So, I think that is that distinction in that, a lot of our food ways and a lot of our food traditions, I think that is a part of it. I do think the history I think there was definitely a gradual erasure of, Black, brown, indigenous people from just, I think one, it was disconnecting us from, these traditions that were part of who we are. Because we felt like we needed to, or people were told we had to to kind of integrate or be accepted kind of in mainstream society. And I do think that there is some aspect of like kind of religiosity just in kind of America writ large that also is part of that. And so yeah, I mean, I'm not totally sure, but I do think it's this intersection of that. It's the whole thing about marketing. It's I don't know how, if you don't grow up in this industry, I don't even know how, or see someone that looks like you who's doing it. I don't know how you get a vision for it because your guidance counselor ain't in high school. So,
Right.
All right,
Exactly. And all the marketing is telling me to drink 40s and malt liquor. And
I get it because in our country you can't legally drink until you're 21, right? So in terms of actually talking to young people about going into this as a job in an industry, I get those boundaries, those lines. But yeah, you're right. Many of us, I'm a child of the 80s, millennial grandma. And so my earliest images were like Billy D. Williams and Colt 45.
Right. That's every time. It works every time.
Which is why they call that like, our beer, why they look at that as like our beer. I think just to piggyback off of all the things that you said, just from the marketing things, I think that just from a marketing perspective, to appeal to masses, there are people less receptive to things that they know originated but from the Black community versus, hey, if we feel like that, we started this or we are the originators of it, it can appeal to the more, I guess you would say, accepted class. Except
hip hop.
Right.
That's what I was about to say. You kind of right with that, Dev, but at the same time, like they want to take everything and just whitewash it. Like even with the hip hop, like everything that they take, when you do the research back to it, you realize like it's brown or black that originated it. You know what I mean? But when you look at it at the surface of the white person presented it, you don't see any blackness.
You know why they can't claim hip hop? Because they still have not found their rhythm.
Man. They claim jazz and rock and roll, so like they still trying to get over that they ain't rap that too.
They can't quite catch the beat. They can't quite catch the beat, and it's like
as soon as hip hop gets claimed by white people and black people let them have it, it's a new genre of music that gets started. Every single time it's jazz. Then they took that. Then it was rock and roll. They took
country.
That.
We did that too.
And then they came and now it's rap and hip hop. And we just said, fuck it, we're gonna make hip hop a whole culture. And that's what fucked them up. They couldn't just take the hip hop. Eminem wasn't enough. Eminem and Vanilla Ice. You got to come harder than that.
Vanilla Ice.
You got to bring more people.
Right, about to say, ask Lil if he bought an Eminem album. It's like, no, we already know the answer to that.
And Vanilla Ice. I appropriated the whole culture.
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with what, especially with hip hop, is because it being still a kind of, in terms of other musical styles, it's still in its kind of not infancy, but it's still pretty. It was brought on the stage, so when technology was catching up, where it didn't allow so many things to bog it down, or like where you have people recording rock music and then changing the people's voices on there to whitewash it down. So you couldn't do that. You couldn't do that in hip hop because they were talking about, especially in the earlier days, they were talking about things specifically in the community that was happening. So you couldn't be like, if you tried,
somebody in on a bone fuzz album. All right, Bob.
Right.
Hit it.
Right.
Which in turn, Rob, is why I say hip hop, rap and hip hop became a culture. And it's harder for them to steal it. Like jazz didn't become a culture; it was just a genre of music. Rock and roll was just a genre of music, and country just a genre of music. But hip hop, like rap is within hip hop.
I think those are all culture.
Those are all cultures.
I don't know.
When you think back to the days of like of New York and jazz with the links.
So if time repeats itself, is it going to be? Is it in 50 years? Are we going to be thinking about hip hop the way we think about jazz now? Because I don't look at jazz as it was a culture of blackness. I look at jazz. I don't.
You're done with Dizzy and Louis
I
and
agree.
Miles Davis.
Yeah,
Davis.
I agree. I
All of
agree.
them.
And white people stole it. And by the time I was born, I
know he canceled, but Bill Cosby, he did all these things on the Cosby Show.
Say what
I
you
know
want.
he
All
canceled,
jazz. No, first of all, Bill Cosby. Let's sidebar. Bill Cosby can be canceled. The Cosby Show cannot. The Cosby Show was greatness. You can cancel Bill Cosby all day. We are not canceling the Cosby Show. Not on this show.
His character on that.
Or different world.
Right.
Yes. Yes. He knew. Yes.
And like for example, the
But thank you for educating me, guys, because the jazz I didn't see that. But you're right. You're absolutely right.
The winner of this year's what's the is it The Voice? I forget. Cam Anthony from Philadelphia who won. He scat throughout the whole beginning of his audition.
I like a good scat.
He's like 19 years old.
Okay.
And just to know that is already still kind of happening.
Yeah. And Robert Glasper,
great. Oh, I love him.
Yeah.
Teach me.
Well, see, I think a lot of the things. I think a lot of things.
Right.
I think a lot of it is education or the miseducation of Black folks, and that's how you're easily to say, well, this ain't. You don't like this kind of beer. You like this malt liquor. This is what you are because you don't know. You didn't know because I mean a lot of the culture that you talk about, we kind of had to build from the ground up because it was all scattered and fragmented. So it was kind of like built. So you got to
scat,
and even a lot of brewers don't. I mean, you'll go on brewery websites, and if you were to listen to kind of just what the drumbeat of a lot of folks put out, is like, oh, there was some monk, in Belgium, or some, the person in some abbey somewhere in Germany. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's a very Eurocentric.
Yeah.
It's like everything begins with Europe. And it's like, we forget, no, there were kingdoms and civilizations.
And you notice how it's always like an isolated monk that started it. It's never like in London. It was never in like the tenement in London. It was some ancient monk on a cliff by himself that discovered beer. Like bullshit, dude. Like don't white it up that much. Come on, that's too white. Isolated nomad hermit monk made beer for the first time, and now we all drink beer. Shut up.
That don't even make no sense.
Not at all. It seemed like it do. If you heard it, you'd be like, oh, white people made that up. Yeah.
But yeah, and I have been surprised at how much of the project has been really, really educational, for everyone, even me, like I'm learning about, how this, spans, like I mentioned, bow and arrow, like, indigenous cultures who also have these practices, down in, I think I can't remember which South American country, but a similar drink called chicha made out of maize made corn, similarly, like you have these cultures who are using these practices and brewing using the grains that were, in their geographic, vicinity. And this idea of, even the word spirits, right? Like this craft wasn't just about, it was about connecting to the world that we can't see, right? It was a lot of these drinks were used, right, in religious ceremonies. We talk about, pouring out liquor for the homie that ain't here, but that's like a true libation, like the libation, that comes from, our culture where we pour out alcohol for, to thank the ancestors or to celebrate. Like I had a cousin when I was in Nigeria one time who got a new car. He brought it over to my uncle's house and they poured out some alcohol, in reference to the ancestors, for that. And so, thinking about how, we consume and produce alcohol a certain way in modern times, but really thinking about the context and the ways and the purposes for which it was originally, created.
Where do you think that got lost at?
Well, I mean, I think once people realize you can make money,
it stopped being a ritual.
I mean, the commercialization, and the ways in which, men figured out you can make money. And I was like, all right, we got, we'll take it, from here. But because one of the other themes I'm exploring is actually these similarities I've been finding. So one of the things I'm exploring is kind of also the rise of sobriety culture with younger generations. And it's interesting because I've been learning about the challenges, again, particularly around Black women who are in recovery. And it's crazy how some of the same experiences I hear them talking about as Black women in recovery I hear the exact same phrases from Black women brewers in terms of these challenges around, lack of representation, not feeling included, not feeling welcome. And it's crazy because in one way you would think they're like on these opposite sides of the spectrum. But I think the reality is that for most people, we have relationships with people in our lives, some who consume, some who don't, either by choice or because it's just not, it's not productive, it's not helpful, it's not healthy, or they're in recovery. And, I think that I'd like for us to figure out how to be a better village to each other, and understanding that there are challenges that, Black women have when they walk into, let's say, some type of meeting and no one looks like them, or they feel like they can't talk about, certain things that are also affecting, their sobriety journey, et cetera. And just similar to Black women brewers who also feel a sense of exclusion, and kind of questioning those, those questions about belonging. And so that has been interesting. That's been an interesting journey as well. Just trying to figure out how we can not view not view that spectrum as like threatening, but how we can become a better village to each other. And even just the ways in which this is probably, that I've seen and been thinking about the ways in which kind of alcohol and consumption is tied to ideas of masculinity and femininity and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So
another question. I don't know if you touch on this, but do you talk about some of the financial roadblocks in terms of, because when you see there's so many Black brewers out here making good beer, but there's always seems to be funding issue to really get that brick and mortar up, and so they have to either do campaigns or but then you see some people like, I just want to start a brewery, and it's there tomorrow.
Yeah, I've heard some. I'm sure I'll hear more. I've heard some stories in terms of just some of the experiences Black brewers have had. Going to investors, and getting certain. And a lot of times, sometimes these are investors that don't know beer, right? They don't know the industry. They just have capital to invest, and so often they'll just say stuff that is blatantly racist and ignorant. In terms of like everything you make should be in a 40-ounce format. What? Where have you gone and had a 14% Belgian triple that's in a 40-ounce? Like, what the hell? That doesn't make no sense. Like
you having a night on there?
14% Belgian triple at a 40? Like, what? You gotta kill people?
Right.
So yeah, so that's very real. And even again, like I was talking about before, like if you don't kind of come into this, with having someone, in your family or someone that that's kind of paved that way, then it makes it hard. And I think for Bree, like Celeste was that for her, right? Celeste was this trailblazer that, Bree saw, because Bree had this idea, but, am I crazy? I don't see nobody look at me. And then Celeste shows on the stage, she's like, okay, yes, I'm not crazy. Like I can do this. This can happen. Right. And then, and there are ways and people who actually want to help. So I think there's been both, right? There's been the horror stories about, the pitch meetings and stuff gone wrong. But then there are also the stories about, finding your people, finding your tribe, finding those folks who support you. And it's been actually amazing to see the breweries that have opened and flourished even throughout like this pandemic. And the other thing I also want to celebrate is the relevance and the importance of our HBCUs in this industry, because, Celeste is a graduate of Shaw University in Raleigh, and that's actually where her and Bree didn't go there, but that's where they met. They met at an event there. I believe some of the folks with Crown and Hops are from Howard or went to Howard.
Howard and Henry. Howard and Spelman.
I think, yep. And then in some of my research, the first Black person and first woman who was the first brewmaster for a major American brewery, which was Miller. They used to have a plant in Eden, North Carolina, which is kind of right, not that far from the Virginia border, kind of north of Greensboro, Winston-Salem. But Miss Patricia Henry, she's from Reidsville, North Carolina, and she's what we call a Bennett Belle. She went to Bennett College. That has just been something I've also been noticing, like how how the importance and the centrality of HBCUs in producing folks who see this as, a path, or being a space where those folks can connect and make those relationships for, generations coming behind them.
How will you try to compact or put all this information?
Netflix cut the check.
Because I'm sure you find yourself time after time of saying, like, the more whatever connection you find from maybe one story or talking to this person, that then, as you're telling the story, I hear just in you talking about it, how boom, and this is connected to this, and this is connected to this. It's almost like this endless family tree.
Welcome to the inside of my brain.
But no, I like that. And I think that's dope about it. So again, to Rob's point, when do you say, or when will you say, like, I've got all I can put into this and cut?
Yeah,
I know.
Right,
it's hilarious because when you're working, at least for me, so this is my first feature length. I've done 2 shorts and I've done audio projects. This is my first feature. So when I was starting off, the fear is like, am I going to have enough to fill 90 minutes? Most features are like 90 minutes. I'm going to have enough. Yeah. And so now I'm in the other issue where I'm like, oh my God, is this like 3 different movies?
It's 10 episodes. That's when it becomes 10 episodes.
And we have this saying in documentary when it comes to editing, kill your darlings, where it comes a point in the editing process where these scenes and these things where you have to make these really hard decisions. And so, but the other thing that happens in documentary, I
don't want to be you. But I do. I kind of want to be you. I want to be that fly on the wall. I do want to be you, and then I don't want to be you in that.
Devin, you want to be the best boy. You want to be the grip, the boom mic. You don't want to make the hard decisions. Just be in there filming.
But also part of what the journey of filming and what I love about documentary, and particularly independent documentary filmmaking, is like every filmmaker has a story about how they launched into the project, and you have this really strong feeling that film is going to be one thing or about one thing, and invariably something happens during the production, and it's like, and then the film takes its turn and it becomes something else. So it's part of having a plan, going in with a plan, but still staying open and being adaptable. Because even like when I started shooting back in 2019, I had no idea what was going to happen in terms of, the conversations within, craft brew, craft beer about race. Had no idea about, the impact of George Floyd's murder, just kind of on the world, obviously about, COVID. Where people, brewers were trying to figure out, am I still going to be in business, a year from now?
You had to weave all this kind of in.
Yeah. So and so you're, and then even now, like there's been developments with certain things, certain kind of plot lines, that, will, some will unfold, in different ways. And so, and I have, and I still, and so and between now and we'll still be shooting into early 2022, not, just wanting to be there and show up, but kind of be open to kind of what unfolds. So, so it's going to be, I'm looking forward to see what the end result, looks like. So,
that's interesting that you kind of sort of don't even know.
Right.
And so, it's so hard because people always like, so when's the film going to be done? And when can we expect to see it for the release? And, I'll give people dates in the back of my mind. I'm like,
it's done when it's done.
Yeah. Like 2022, we'll still be filming. I know that.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. So that's just give time for travel and stuff. So.
True.
So from a creator to a creator, this is just a question of like, what's your notepad beside your bed look like, or is it your phone? Like those thoughts.
I don't know if I can. I have like a wall, like I'm a Post-it note girl.
You're a Post-it note girl. Okay.
So I've got the Post-it notes. Okay.
But
like
all of them. Are they all the same color, or are they different colors?
No, different colors. And I'm very like, I like flow charts and visuals. Okay. So I don't, so sometimes so my notes are like, pictures or diagrams or, things like that. So I do both. I have like the phone for like usually things like I want to research or ideas, in real time. And then I'll have, I have a few kind of like production journals in terms of, usually because they come out of like notes from like interviews that I do or things I want to follow up on. And then I've got stuff on the computer from research from like, if I find something in an archive that I want to use or, dig into something. So it's all over. Yeah, it's all over the place.
It's great. That's great.
What's the actual process? Like, you're doing a beer documentary right now, but before you decided, hey, this is what I'm going to do, like it's 2018 right now, what you have, I'm sure you have some ideas in your head about what my next documentary, I'm trying to do a full length, like you said. What makes it say, hey, I'm going full bore, or what, I'm not going to do this documentary, I'm going to go forward with this one, because it's going to be 4 to 5 years of your life and creativity that you're putting on the line.
I would say not most, but I would say a lot of documentarians often have different projects going on at the same time, but in different stages, right? So, like, for instance, this project I was called, early production, but I have other projects that I would say are more in like research and development, right? So I kind of have like a passion project that I know is like going to be like a decades long, like epic kind of thing that is like super early, research and development that's just kind of back, kind of percolating, like in the background. But then I might have, another project that develops that maybe is like shorter term, one of the things that people keep talking about, I'm still trying to figure out how I feel about more putting it, there being more, audio and podcasts in the world, but because I do both audio and video, and I also write. So sometimes it's figuring out, well, what's the right medium, the right topic, the timing, and, in place, kind of to put it out. But just trying to be open. And then also, like, the other thing I want people to know is, like, I want to work on other people's projects. Like, I learn so much from other artists and other art mediums, right? So one of the things I missed the most during the pandemic was not being able to go to like art galleries, and like, just look at art, or, textile art, visual art, like whatever. Like, even if it's not an art medium that I work in, culinary arts, whatever, like, I just love learning from other disciplines. And so, and I get lots of inspiration. And so I also want to have space in terms of my bandwidth to not only like work on my projects and the things that are important to me, but also like, I want to, be the person who shows up, to be the, hold a mic, whatever, crew for somebody.
Right. I just want to be in the room. I just want to be in the room. Right?
It's that room where it happens.
Like to say, I was there,
Yeah.
Exactly.
So yeah, find that balance. Yeah, that's the rub.
Cool.
Rob, did you have a question?
Well, it was. Well, I guess it was a question. In terms of because you said you were in early production for the film, and you just had closed a round of funding, and now the world is opening back up. So while we wait for Netflix, to cut the check, what are you doing now as things start to ramp back up? So what's going on now?
So now I'm crewing up. So it's really important for me because of the themes of this film. This might hurt some feelings. So it is important for me to have Black women on both sides of the camera. So I am really committed to hiring a local crew of, also Black women behind the camera as well.
Support our Black women. I agree.
And
that's our sisters.
Don't support me, support Black women.
So I'm crewing up to do shooting, and I'm trying to figure out production schedule, because to your point, like, I feel like everyone decided to open up all at the same, like, even like this weekend, there was like the North Carolina Hops Festival.
Right. I
think there was some other like food trucks, something going on in Durham. Like, there was like so much going on this weekend. So yeah, all the beer festival, everything's, opening, everyone's scheduling stuff on top of each other. And I'm just trying to figure out, okay, like, where do I need to be, in terms of, kind of shooting. And then there's stuff going on here locally, North Carolina, that I need to shoot for. So I'm figuring out that production schedule for the rest of the year. So those are the two main things. And I'm still raising money. Like, I feel like summertime seems to be a big grant writing season. So I feel like I've written 11 grants, in the last month. And I'm still raising.
They're brutal. They're brutal, like brutally long. Not brutal. This is just brutally long.
Yeah,
that goes into them.
Yeah.
So that's what I was actually going to kind of segue into next after Rob asked this question about the donations. Is it important to you that the some of the funding from for this documentary comes specifically from the brewery community, meaning from breweries, right?
Yeah.
And are you taking or trying to schedule meetings with these breweries to say donations, please, and giving them pretty much a quick 15-minute, slide deck of why it's important, why this matters, and why they should, support the fund from a funding perspective.
Yeah. Yes to all the things.
Awesome.
I haven't probably done it as well of a succinct and organized as way as you've articulated. So I was like, oh, he got me all the way. He got me all the way together. Let me take a look at it.
I only said it that way. I always said it that way because that's what we're working on.
I love it. No, but I love it. Thank you. Thank you. But even with the crowdfunding campaign that we just did on Seed and Spark, which is a platform that's created specifically for independent filmmakers. Yeah, I was hitting up directly, particularly the breweries like in the Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Hill kind of area about this, and I'm really and I'm really encouraged by the response by folks like Full Steam and Durham, Ponysaurus,
Ponysaurus.
Oh, you don't know about Ponysaurus?
That name is just amazing.
Makes Genuine starts playing in your head.
Yeah, riding a dinosaur.
I feel like
I didn't want to say because I didn't think nothing about Genuine when you just said.
Yeah, I thought about My Little Pony and dinosaurs.
Yes. So Ponysaurus is it's a great
That's awesome. That's
great brewery, great folks. Shout out to Nick and the team there in Durham, who've been super supportive. And continuing to have those conversations with breweries. And I'll say, all the brewers that I've met and talked with, like I'm thinking about Mahalia, who's she's a female Latina brewer in Wilson, North Carolina, which is just about 20-30 minutes south of Rocky Mount, eastern North Carolina. Has a beautiful brewery. Oh my God, what's the name of Mahalia's brewery? I cannot think of the name off the top of my head. Casitas Brewing.
Okay.
And so, that's, her hometown. She moved back, they opened their brewery in a pandemic, beautiful space. But yeah, I mean, there's just been a lot of, I would say generally a lot of support, but still, I think a lot of opportunity to have those really direct conversations with our brewery community, particularly in North Carolina, because it is so large. Yeah. And a lot of folks are having these conversations about race.
Now, this is actually going to kind of throw off the whole conversation because it's going to go left. But I think I read in the bio that you were a lawyer or a law. So how did you say, I want to do documentaries?
Hold on.
We can do, why? Because we can do anything.
She can do anything.
Just like Jordan said, I'm going to play basketball. I'm going to play baseball. I can do it all. That's why. Go ahead.
But documentaries were tough.
Right. Esquire. Documentaries are hard. Esquire.
Boss.
So, when I was applying, it's interesting. When I was applying to law school, you have to write an essay. And I wrote.
I did not know.
So you
never applied to law school.
If that's if that's in your future, you just so you know, you can say Tinu told me. She gave me a heads up. I started working on it. I got it ready. I've been working on it. So my essay was focused on a quotation from a gentleman by the name of Charles Hamilton Houston, who, among many things, was dean of Howard Law School. And in the 1950s, it was, I believe, the NAACP sent him to South Carolina with a camera to document whatever the video camera footage format was. It was either 5mm or 15mm, I can't remember. But he took this camera to South Carolina to record footage of the disparities between white schools and black schools in South Carolina. And he took this footage and brought it back to Howard, where he was teaching people like Thurgood Marshall. He was probably teaching people like Polly Murray, a generation of black lawyers some of them would become judges in the case of Thurgood Marshall, Supreme Court justice, but use it to teach them about the system of segregation that they would then go on to dismantle, in the courts. And so he has this quotation that a lawyer is either a social architect or a social parasite. And so it's this idea, the way I think of it for myself is this idea that, with whatever, and you can put in whatever profession you want, as a lawyer, but like this idea of like, the privilege that you have of whatever it is that you've been given in this life, how are you using it to build and to architect and to create and to regenerate versus just simply to extract and to exploit, right? And so one of the things that I love about Charles Hammond Houston is that for me, he embodies like this intersection, right? Of, for me, like being a documentarian, being, a lawyer, and I work in Durham as a community organizer, but he embodies like these, having these different facets of who you are. And I think we do a really bad job, particularly in the US, about having this false idea of people having to choose or to be this one thing. It's almost like, unless you're like super famous or super rich, then you can multi-hyphenate, like Jay-Z and Oprah, they can be whatever they want, whatever, or Obama, whatever. But, and so I think that that's actually more common. I think that there are people who even come to law school with, really strong creative, bent, or, people who go into, engineering that also, I don't know, are like talented actors. I think that we all hold multitudes.
Right.
And I think I know I can speak specifically for lawyers because that's the profession I know best, but I think lawyers are really good at just kind of putting people in boxes. Like we're not really good at like getting, and I think that's a tragedy because, I think people are more complex and nuanced and textured, than we allow them to be. And so I actually get that a lot is like, if people, view it as like this hard left. But I love being a lawyer. I'm not someone who's like, oh, I'm a recovering lawyer and I hate it. They beat me up, whatever. It's like, no, I love, like my licenses are current. Because if I get that call at 3 a.m., I'm saying that,
is lawyering your day job?
Not my day job.
Is documenting your day job?
Some days it is. Depends which day you ask me.
Okay.
But I work I'm the executive director of a community-based organization in Durham, and so I'm the executive director of a nonprofit.
What's your law degree in?
So the law. So most of my time as a lawyer, I spent working for the U.S. Department of Transportation.
Okay.
I worked at a federal research lab in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and so did a lot of work there. And then after that, spent some time working in higher education. So it's been pretty much federal government, higher ed, and then nonprofit, I would say.
Do you feel the need to keep your licenses up for that, even though seem like you're more into the documentary side of it now, of your career?
Yeah, I mean, I still embrace that fully as as who I am. And it's interesting because Bree, who is founder of Spaces, she actually went to law school as well, so she has a whole interesting story about her path and journey, and that's something that we connected to really early on. But yeah, I think it's for me. It's really for me. You know?
I
like that.
That's what I say. My daughter's a lawyer.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, your parents love that. Your parents do not like saying.
I know.
They don't like saying you're a documentarian. They like saying you're a lawyer.
They like to say you're a lawyer. I was about to say that. That too is cultural.
It is.
That too is cultural because
it is.
There's the pressures.
It is. No, you're absolutely right.
We made it, but we made it through the vessel too of like our children.
So you became a lawyer. You became a lawyer just to become a documentarian to your parents.
I know, it took me a while for them to know what exactly I was doing.
You were like, you were a little nervous to tell them you were working on this more than doing it.
Well, it's about beer, so they're just like, do you have a problem? Like,
right.
So it's like, certain elders are like, what? Huh?
It's so funny to know is my wife watches this show, The Housewives of Potomac.
Yes.
And there's a woman on there who she's a news anchor, but she's, very, very prominent, but she wants to quit.
Wendy, yes.
Working at Johns Hopkins University in the doctrine as a teacher, but she's so afraid of what her parents, and this woman is grown, living a millionaire, living her life to the fullest.
She's a doctor already and just want to be an anchor woman. Like, that's 2 good jobs.
Right.
But it ain't the right job for Nigerian parents.
Her husband's an attorney too. She's just wants to switch, and the person that she's most afraid to tell is her mother.
Well,
Her husband fine with it. Her husband good with it. Her husband good with it.
Crying like afraid.
If you ever seen that Yvonne OG comedy show, she tell you all about it. She was like, I couldn't tell my mom was a comedian until I bought her house or something.
I know. That's accurate. That's accurate. Yeah, it's the
like I was dead serious about that. That I became a lawyer just so I could do documentaries. Like I think
my parents wouldn't bother me about it. Like here, take my law degree. Go put it on your wall. Yes, go put it in my living room.
Leave it alone. Go tell all your family and friends. My daughter's a lawyer.
But here's the thing that's fascinating to me about that, right? Is, and I do think it is generational in that, so again, I'm the child of parents that came in the wave of Nigerian immigration, like in the 70s. And, a lot of, my parents' generation, a lot of them are in like the sciences and medicine, engineering. And some of that had to do with discrimination because of their accents, quite frankly. But now it's amazing. So one, it's amazing. It is amazing to see the vast range of Nigerian Americans, like in arts, in sport, things that growing up, you could you were not like, I could play football, like professionally, like that wasn't even an option. And now it's just like, oh, you can rap, you can, whatever, And so, but here's the crazy thing is that we come from like our civilization, our kingdoms, our tribes, our cultures are so steeped in the arts. They're steeped in sculpture and art and, bronze work and storytelling, griots. And think about Nollywood. I mean, you have this huge film industry in Nigeria, that is, just amazing. And so it is this strange thing, remnant, I think. And again, it goes back to this whole, I think so much of what I think about is like how these earlier generations, trying to give them space and understanding in terms of the ways in which they were just trying to survive.
Could I ask you a question? This is personal to your family and your parents growing up, and in the way that Nigerian Americans always tell their kids, like, you need to be a doctor, a lawyer, that type of success. Do you think it's because when they come, when a lot of Nigerian or African immigrants come to America, they have to have this engineering degree or doctorate degree, like to almost fit in? It's real racist, but to almost fit in, like you can't be a regular African like that just wants to try to make it in America. It's like you have to have a pre-degree or be a straight A student to even get the licenses or the passport to come here. So when you do get here, it's quote unquote, I'm not sure, I'm asking the question, but it's the best of the best that actually come from Nigeria to America. And once they get here, they want their kids to be just as great, and they know how hard it was for them to get from Nigeria to America, and they want to implement that to their kids. Am I right in saying that a little bit?
So first, let me just say we got knuckleheads too.
Oh yeah, yeah. But you know what I mean. Like in America, some fucked up black people, but they don't go overseas. We don't let them go overseas. They're not our representation.
They're not getting.
So we're gonna take the best Nigerians and make them immigrant.
We got some Olus and some Ios, some cousins that they got. Let me just like everybody.
Go call your cousin. Talk to him.
Tell him get right. Tell him get right.
I mean, I think again, and a lot of this I'd probably have to ask my parents. I do wonder if some of this is like remnant of like the British education system that generation grew up under. Because I think my understanding, I don't know a lot about it, but my understanding it was like it was very rigid, and it like kind of tracked people into kind of professions like really early, even in your schooling. So there wasn't a lot of like autonomy or flexibility or like, oh, I'm gonna do a gap year. Like, nah, I ain't no gap year,
This is the plan. You gotta go there with the plan. You got a weekend off.
You got the weekend off.
No, you don't get no vacation. No.
Right. They probably felt like if they deviated from it, it would be like almost like a deportation or something to go back, and they couldn't go back on that.
Yeah. Right. And I mean, a lot of this is, but I want to, but I also want to talk about context, which is, we are a non-Western tribal like culture. And so even your successes, your failures, it's not just about you, it's a reflection on the village, on the tribe, on the community.
Okay.
And so I do think a aspect of this is like that aspect of being from a non-Western culture, and the fact that even your successes don't belong to you. Like I joked about like sending my degrees home from my parents from the living room, but that's actually not beyond.
Yeah, it's their degree. It's not yours. It's theirs.
It's a whole village. It's everybody. You know, everyone celebrates in your successes. And so I think that's part, going back to the whole example that was given specifically about Wendy from House of Potomac. I think that's part of it, is like understanding that it is both the blessing and the challenge of being from that type of culture. Because I do think that there is a space for like autonomy and a space for agency and a space for you being able to pursue, you know, that thing that, you know, you were uniquely created for, outside of the pressures of what other people want for you. But there is also a joy in, you know, again, that you have like, you know, this cloud of witnesses and these people, you know, in a village and ancestors, you know, who are rooting for you and supporting you and invested, you know, in your flourishing. And so it's that tension between the two. And I do think some of it was going back to like, how are people trying to, you know, think about, you know, how to survive and how to do so in a way that lessened, you know, one, I think just the trauma of immigration. Like, I think that there's a lot, you know, I don't know if any of y'all have read the book, The Warmth of Other Suns by Isabel Wilkerson, or familiar with that book, but it kind of documents the migration of Black folks from the South to, you know, Chicago and, you know, New England and to the West. But, you know, one of the things she talks about is how that generation of Black folks, they're just things that they just did not discuss about what happened, you know, during those times. And I think that there's a part of immigration, even though the immigrant story is often taught as like, I'm so happy to be here. And, you know, I put myself up on my bootstraps and look at me, look at my kids and blah, blah, whatever. Like, I think there's some trauma that's probably there in terms of like having to leave home and having to leave, in some cases, family members, and leave what you know, and leave like the place from which you came to this new place where you may or may not know people. And like, I even think about, you know, now as an adult, like my parents did not know how to raise kids in America. They literally did not know how to raise. Hi, Mom, if you're watching. But like, it's my mom's birthday.
Love you, Mom.
Hey, happy birthday.
Happy
birthday.
But you know, but really, like they had no experience of like what it would mean to raise children from their bodies that were, you know, in this other culture and different language and, you know, things like that. So, so I think I think it's a whole mix of of those things.
Good.
Great answer. Thank you.
I knew my official question would throw it all the way off from the documentary, but I thought people should know that. I mean, it's more than just doing a documentary. You have a lot of hats, a lot of layers, and so Netflix is definitely, there's a lot of ideals in there that she need to put on.
You should just start DMing them every day. Just DM them every day.
Every day.
I'm just tag them in every post like Netflix.
That's what I was saying.
Hello.
Still here now. I'm still here, Netflix. It's not 2 hours now. It's 8 hours in.
Right, and I think, and I'm sure they're listening now, because the success of High on the Hog and other documentaries like that, they really say, well, people are actually watching this and want to know more about it. So I think that is definitely. You get the right person to the story, then they'll. And I think now that I see this documentary can't start without being in Nigeria first, right? It's just, like you gotta be where your grandmother was.
Yeah. You want to ask her that, or are you just kind of throwing that out there? Like,
I was just throwing out.
Well, but speaking of that, like so something, and I'm just going to relate this to music. So something that we do as a musical artist, we do a show that's called 90s Kind of Love, to pay homage to 90s style music and soundtracks, right? So we do that here in Philadelphia. And I was going to ask you, for like from a documentary or making films, you know how important music and things connect you with it. So how are you planning to infuse music into the documentary?
Love that question, because music is huge. It's huge. It's huge for a few reasons. It's huge because for me, because I'm a huge, and because music features so prominently. One, it's important to me. Second, because it's really important to Bree. For instance, this is just a empty like can that Bree signed for me a while ago. It's from one of her other beers called Pirate Jenny. So that's a Nina Simone song, right?
Oh yes,
She has another beer, Don Dada. I think it's a cardamom stout, and so that's from Super Cat. You know, she has. Oh gosh, I feel like, but music is super like central in Bree's creative process in terms of how she brews. And music is always on, usually when she's brewing. So we actually started like a Spotify list that at some point I'll put up on the site. But it's all the songs that either are that come out of her beers or that are playing whenever we're shooting. So for instance, like one of them is Fela's, Fela's Water No Enemy. So she always plays that because of all the water she has to use whenever she's making beer. So,
you gotta have a soundtrack. That's a soundtrack in the making right there.
And so even like for instance, I remember one really cool moment was when I guess 2019 was the year that Rhapsody's album Eve came out. So Rhapsody is a rapper from Snow Hill, North Carolina. Works with part of Jamla Records, Ninth Wonder, who's in Durham, and Cooley High, all that. And so when I started shooting was kind of when Eve came out, and Eve is, pretty much an homage to Black women. Yeah. And so that has been kind of like the unofficial, official soundtrack for me during this whole production, because I'm always listening to it. I'm playing it all the time. Like I literally was like in the car driving to Rocky Mount to shoot with Bree. And I walked into the brewery and she had it playing on her, on her speaker.
Are you going to talk to her? You going to have Rhapsody in the production as well?
Rhapsody.
Yeah, if you're listening.
Her name is Marlena, I believe. Hi, Marlena. Watching. I can't. I don't know. I would love to have some of that music. If we can get,
it seems like it has to be now. It's such a big part of you and your
y'all will figure it out. Like
you make some requests. You got to write some contracts.
Look, Rob told me only if we play it for 30 seconds, it's legal. As long as it's less than 30 seconds.
I would need more than 30, but
Yeah, I know. 30 seconds at a time. We're going 30 seconds in the beginning, 30 second clips.
Loris, I did not say that.
I didn't say you was a lawyer.
That is not legal advice for anybody watching. Consult your copyright lawyer. But music is going to be very significant. And even so the name of Bree's brewery, Spaceway, is an homage to her to Afrofuturism, and so she's very much into Sun Ra. I don't know if any of y'all have heard of him. So he's kind of coined and credited as being kind of one of the kind of patron saints of Afrofuturism. And so and he actually has a song, and I think the lyrics are "We travel the spaceway from planet to planet." And so that's part of how what led to the creation of Spaceway. So anyway, the short, long answer is music is very significant. And again, like Rocky Mount, home of Thelonious Monk, or where Thelonious Monk was born. And so just a huge, in North Carolina in general, there's just a huge legacy of jazz, of all kinds of, jazz, bluegrass,
J. Cole,
Petey Pablo.
Yeah, Petey Pablo, yeah.
Casey and JoJo.
Petey Pablo.
Right.
Fantasia.
Yes.
Clay Aiken.
Right.
Listen, keep on going, girl. Go ahead.
Yes.
J. Cole.
So
lots of
the baby.
Really strong, deep musical roots. So I'm excited about that actually.
So. That's
nice.
I'm excited to see this project come together and see the final. So hopefully we're at.
What do you guys want? What's interesting? I mean, as beer enthusiasts and folks who spend time talking and thinking about like these intersections and conversations particularly around race and beer, like what are some things that you want to see, or
since we started the podcast, this has been my whole beer journey. So I didn't know I was a Coors Light, Michelob Ultra type of guy before the podcast. So knowing craft beer, and then like I mentioned earlier, we went to Montclair Brewery, and it just was like an explosion of Black knowledge in beer. So I'm just interested for your documentary to see the intersection of Black people, beer, and craft. And like I love the craft of it all. So, and the fact that Yeah, like
I love
Dev,
that.
like Dev says, we're all creative people, and blackness is creative. And to see that we started it, and to know, like, now that we started out, I walk with my head a little bit higher when I'm in white breweries or in white spaces that have beer, because you're taking from my stuff. Whereas before I was kind of trepidatious, like, oh, this is y'all, I'm intruding on your territory, and it's like, no, I'm here. Listen to me, like, see me, you know what I mean? And I give it to Rob. Like, Rob never had that issue with beer. Like, Rob's like, the beer is good. I don't care how many black people are there. And like that, but knowing with his knowledge of that, and then having the knowledge that it is a black experience as well, like, that gets me hyped for all this shit. And then knowing that every single time we have a guest that loves black people in craft beer, they bring up fresh fest shit. And it's really like the mecca of black beer is Day and Mike, we're it, you know what I mean? So I just always want to give people their flowers and let them know while I'm learning, like, I appreciate you. Like, and then everybody's so nice. Like, you reach out to people from nowhere, like, I don't know you, and you just say, hey, you want to come on the podcast? And 6 weeks later, they're on the podcast. Like, people are just so nice in the community. Yeah, for sure. So y'all can go ahead, but that was how I feel about that.
Well, I'm always big on journeys. I love journey stories. Like, even in anything I watch, I like to see the growth and the journey and how it all kind of started. So that's why I said now I need you to have dirt in your hand in Nigeria. Like, this is
just to start. This water, this sorghum.
I need the soil.
Here's the seed.
A black woman's hand squeezing
There's
dirt
falling between your.
Right. That's how I set up the shot.
That's why she need the grip. She need that best boy in that grip, bro. Like, we coming down there. All we want is free tickets. We got passports.
Oh man,
just need free tickets. If you want some pre-production in North Carolina, just give me a Greyhound bus ticket. I'm fine with that. That's fine. Whatever.
Put him on Mega Bus. There you go.
It's $1 with the asterisk. It's $1 with the asterisk on it.
It might take him a day and a half, but he don't care.
Listen, you leave on Wednesday, you get there on Wednesday. You know what I mean? Stops the Mega Bus got between Philly and
all for $29.
Yeah, but they put $1. They put $1 with the little asterisk on the thing. Like, it's only $1. Asterisk. But it's still like the charge is what you said, 23. It's like, exactly. That's good. That's good. I got 18,000 stops in between, but I'm gonna get there. I'll get there. Yeah. See you next week. I had to take off for 18 days to get there.
For a one-day trip.
A one-day trip.
Oh man, what else?
So
y'all?
For me, so Lou and Rob gave great summaries, and I would just piggyback off of that and say that very similar to me, like, I just from starting the brew journey, probably 5 years ago, fused with the mindset of, and I have this saying that I share with the guys or the crew all the time, that I do move like I'm privileged in any space.
Devin's our resident white man.
Just because I just feel like that I should be accepted wherever I go. It probably would have got me in a lot of trouble had I come up in the times of John Lewis and other people. So I'm thankful that I was not born in that generation.
I will be dead now.
Well, I'm sure that allowed you to feel that way, because I'm sure back then you probably wouldn't even thought about it.
No,
right. So that's kind of just my mantra that and then just from this podcast and meeting so many prominent and powerful people out of the podcast, we've grown stronger and more connected, the four of us as brew crew members. But now we're invited to spaces and to actually take part in more things that are community driven. And just to spark off of it, we are now, on this journey of, diversity, equity, and inclusion in the beer community, just through our own, active like kind of roles and responsibilities that we want to take lead, or we want to take ownership of. What part can we do? What is it that we can do more of? So we're enjoying this journey.
I feel like that last 5-10 minutes that we just said should be on the documentary, and we should have credits rolling.
Okay, we can arrange that.
Definitely. See, hey, you heard it.
Yes.
That's it. We definitely gonna be in Nigeria, baby.
Let me get my IMDb updated.
Right. And as you took notes with how it was articulated, I would like to like incorporate what you're doing for your funding in the message that we're presenting to breweries here locally about how they should support, because again, that's the conversations and meetings that we're actually embarking on right now, to say that this belongs to us, and it needs to be heard. And I think that just look, people, we're all people. We all need to be educated every day. It doesn't just stop from in a classroom, or in the school of hard knock life is the best teacher. So I'm a message spreader. And I think that's why we, are all on this podcast together.
No, thank y'all. Thank y'all so much. I appreciate that. And I really, I hope the impact is, there's a lot of things I want to see in terms of impact, but I think the most important thing for me from this project is that it's not the last, documentary that comes out. I am so excited about seeing how Blackness is being centered in conversations around food and foodways, and Behind the Hog, even I don't know if you guys have checked out For the Culture. Liz Harris, she's in Behind the Hog.
Yeah, she is. She's in the first episode.
I was about to say that lady look familiar.
This is For the Culture, the magazine celebrating Black women and femmes in food and wine.
Okay.
Awesome. And it's just beautiful and amazing. Even
is that a local magazine?
No, it's they're just I think I found them on either Twitter or Instagram. I can't remember how I came across it. Okay. But if you just Google For the Culture, you can order it. But it's beautiful, and definitely encourage folks to support. And
so in that, are they like kind of just short summaries or histories? Like what if you were to briefly, just like 30 seconds, tell us what you can tell us about that magazine? Like what is it capturing?
Beautiful art magazine that has in-depth articles, recipes, features, gorgeous photography.
Is it a monthly, quarterly?
This is issue 1, and I'd have to ask. It has interviews too.
Here you go with all these collector's editions. You stay with a collector's edition.
But
she got the Black Lady bottles. She got the Jenny Penny.
Quincy, I can't remember. I think she might be based in Atlanta, but I'm not sure. Either Atlanta or maybe somewhere in Texas.
Thank you.
But encourage y'all. It's beautiful, and it's amazing. Even like
told you. That's the difference between a yam and a sweet potato. She's the one that tells you.
Yes. I was like, that's where it is, Rob. Thank you, sir. I was like, that lady look familiar as hell.
Wisdom. I think that has been also kind of the other big. Obviously, this for me is my entree into kind of this world has been specifically through beer and craft beer, and that's what I'm focused on. But it has been really encouraging to learn and educational, just to learn about, even like learning about bow and arrow and like the history of, indigenous folks, who have been in this country for, time immemorial, and so much that I didn't know. So it's just been a joy. And I hope that, there are other documentaries and other projects and films that also are coming out, and want to support y'all as much as I can as well. So
awesome.
What I got a couple more questions, Rob. I'm sorry.
This is so good.
What you said you're on this documentary now, but you got so many in the pipeline. What is your dream documentary? Like, do you have that? Is that already done?
No,
it's already in your mind, rather?
Yeah, it's in my mind.
That's her epic. She told me.
That's what I'm saying. You have that one? Is it? You already know. Okay, do you want to talk about it, or you want to keep?
I probably shouldn't, but
don't do it. Don't do it. Keep
feel like
that-
filmmakers always like,
in
you're not
there.
supposed to talk about your stuff today.
Yeah, keep
But,
that to yourself until you're ready. If you don't want to talk about it, you're fine.
It's been percolating for a while, and so
Mhm.
it's one of those things where it's just the time, particularly because this belongs to us, is kind of on the front burner right now.
Yes,
But
absolutely.
yeah, it's definitely it's there in the percolator, and and also just trying to be open to anything related to this belongs to us that kind of comes up and develops. But yeah.
What's your favorite style of beer? We didn't ask that.
Well, since you brought it up, sir, let's go back to the beginning.
IPA.
Yes, team.
No.
Double. I'm like a double, triple IPA kind of gal.
Yes.
Imperial.
Yes.
All the things. So
you hand clapping and snapping and everything. You back that whole shit up. No, stop it.
Double, triple, Imperial.
Good for y'all.
I made a package for you this morning.
It don't matter what your package is, man.
But wait, I was so tempted to put this IPA in there just to you.
I would have sipped it. I definitely would have sipped
what's your favorite style?
I like fruited sours. I like lagers, pilsners.
I'm coming around to that. I was
don't hot bomb me. Don't bomb me with
no, I agree. I think some people would get a little carried away with some of that, and I'm not into
that's the seasons on it.
And you know what?
IPAs,
IPAs,
the whole hazy thing. I'm not understanding the hazy thing either.
Well, IPAs, I don't understand how they smell so fucking good. They're the best smelling beers, and they don't taste like that at all. Like that strawberry banana he had smells great. I know it did. It don't taste like no goddamn strawberries and bananas.
Yes,
it does.
No, it does.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't.
Well, I drink it, and it tastes like
strawberry, banana, and hops.
Well, that's fine, but that's all of them. I said it was a well balanced beer.
Yeah, you did.
You gotta really. I mean, it's like wine. Like some people say they didn't like wine till they got to till they went to a wine tour and then they really appreciated the notes. So maybe you just gotta really, instead of going in like I don't like IPAs, you just gotta skip it.
You already know me. I'll never say never, but I ain't had an IPA that's in the top 10. Like ain't no IPAs made my top 10 yet.
Maybe this is a
all though. I'm not afraid to taste them.
I'm about to say this is a tester. You probably should go down a range of different style high IPAs. Like you probably could do a flight, right? You should go with your traditional West Coast. You should do your East Coast. You should do a hazy. You should do a double dry hop. And don't try to mix it with all these other things because your palate is gonna probably lean toward like the sours that you already write. You probably should just go down just a good list of just IPAs, different versions and variations, and see if there's one that you find, because I do favor more of the double dry hop and the hazy, where the West Coast it is more piney floral to where like I might just have one of them in a day versus several of the other.
I mean, I'll take your word for it. I'll try it, but
and sours have grown on me because I was definitely anti-sour for a very long time. But I've had some really, really nice.
And you know what? To be honest, the beer taste ain't really my thing. Like sours and Kool-Aid, sweet tea. I'm a Southern man by heart. Kool-Aid, sweet tea. Like put a little bit of sugar. I mean, a little bit of water and a whole lot of sugar and food coloring, and we got ourselves. And you want carbonated?
We got that hood lemonade, lemon water,
house party, right? Right. When they was like, he's gonna hurt your teeth. I'm like, what's he doing? He ain't doing nothing wrong. What are you doing? He ain't doing nothing wrong. I knew exactly what was happening when I seen that. That wasn't funny. That wasn't a joke.
You're like,
how it is.
I
made my teeth hurt too. I made my teeth hurt when I seen that scene.
No, I made my teeth. That's what my teeth did.
Give me some more, like bus.
Right.
All right.
I do have one more question.
Hit him with it.
You being from North Carolina earlier, you mentioned before we got on Tar Heels, whatever, and then you mentioned that you went to Duke for graduate school.
Oh.
Great. So what do you prefer, Blue Devil or Tar Heels?
So
say the right answer. It's only one right answer.
First of all, yes. So first of all, yes. So I do live in North Carolina. Although I was from Maryland, but I do live in North Carolina. I am a double Tar Heel, to be clear, undergrad and law school. Okay.
Keep going. Keep going.
And in my certificate in Dartmouth is from Duke. Okay, so we've got the BA and the JD from Carolina, and then we got the certificate.
Okay.
So
okay.
my loyalty should be clear.
Right.
I don't know. It seems like the last thing you got, you went to Duke. So
no, I'm definitely double target. I'm definitely mellowed out. You know, as you get older, you mellow. You know,
for sure,
when you're in college, you know, and it's like
hardcore.
You're like, I hate you now. You know, it's like it's crazy. You know, it's like it's like so. You know, you get caught up.
You definitely were immersed in that whole.
I never burned no cars on Franklin Street, none of that, because I'm like, I gotta
That's
graduate.
Too much.
I gotta graduate. Y'all ain't messing up.
They would definitely pick you out if they saw you burning. I could guarantee.
Ain't nobody jumping through no fire. Yeah. No, Franklin Street, no. But definitely running down to Franklin Street, you know, screaming. Yeah, for sure. No, I was there. Yeah, we definitely had some national championships when I was in. I believe when I was in law school there. And so, but yeah, definitely a double Tar Heel, even though they be messing up.
They do.
The university
brackets up, making the rest of the brackets up.
But when it comes to which shade of blue, it's definitely the lighter shade of blue.
That ain't even a real blue. You know that, right? That's not.
I'll watch it.
All right, so it's time. All right, guys, it's
I got the Tar Heels.
That's why I made it my last question.
I got the Tar Heels blue basketball shorts upstairs with the Jordan logo on the thing, baby.
Yes.
I'm about to bring on my Duke hoodie real quick.
Oh no,
my John Shire
degrees with
my John Shire jersey.
Really showing out.
Oh man.
Go ahead, Rob.
All right.
He's gonna close us out.
Yeah, I want to thank again Atinuke Diver for coming on the podcast.
Thank y'all.
Thank you. Before we go, we always like to know how people can find you on IG, social media, how they can support the project. Shout out to Netflix. And all that good stuff.
It's about to be a thing. I can't wait to see. Amazon. I cannot wait to see what happens. To follow This Belongs to Us, we are at This Belongs to Us, all in word, on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. And then you can go to thisbelongstous.com. If you want to support the project, our fiscal sponsor is the Southern Documentary Fund. And so you can go to southerndocumentaryfund.org/this-belong/to us, or you just go to the southerndocumentary.fund.org and just search for us. And those are, I think, all the ways to support and to follow and to keep in touch with all of the developments of the project.
Awesome.
All
yeah,
right.
and I hope to see. As soon as we figure out how to emerge, I hope to see folks. I haven't figured out what my festival plan schedule is going to be for the fall, but hope to see folks in real life.
Yeah.
We'll be at Flow Fest.
It's safe to do so.
We'll be at Flow Fest.
Cool.
Barrels and Flow.
Yeah. He called it Flow Fest though. That's what he called it.
Yes.
All right, Lou.
Lou Belgium. I'm on them Instagrams.
Dev.
You can find Dev on Instagram at Dev Drinks Craft Brew. Look, did I do it right? There you go.
Ooh, fancy.
Been practicing.
Right.
Been practicing.
Wow.
I tried. It's opposite. Yeah, just think opposite direction.
Yeah, Goofy. It's Goofy Foot. That's Goofy Foot from the Nintendo days. Yeah.
Shout out to 302 Yoda. He had technical difficulties. He did want to jump on, but he did not make it. But if you want to, now I said technical difficulties, and then Dev had him.
Dev said, "I'm out."
Oh my bad! I brought the retrograde back up.
Right, you sure technology's in retrograde. That was funny.
If you want to follow Brews and Banter podcast, you can check us out on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. You can listen to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, anywhere you listen to podcasts. You can even say, Alexa, play Brews and Banter podcast, because we'll be on Amazon Music as well. Definitely check us out on YouTube and Facebook. Remember to smash that like button. Get
Smash
the notification.
Smash the like button.
Or you can just go to www.brewsandbanter. You can check out all the links to the podcast and the merchandise and the social media pages, all that good stuff. If you want to follow me, Rob G, there it is, Rob Stay Bruising, right there.
That's good.
And if you are in Delaware, June 19th, we have a caravan at Christina Park. Definitely come and check us out. I think that is
That's it. Sorry, guys.
That's all right.
He's back.
Until next time, this has been episode 123 of Brews and Metal Podcast. Once again, want to thank Atinuke Diver for coming on. This belongs to us. Definitely check out the project. Until next time,
have a good week,
peace.
Everyone.
Peace. I like her energy. Her energy's great.
Yeah, man. You're awesome. That would be awesome.